Funny thing about this interview is Dale Jarrett's done his share of interviews and interviewing people, and Dale still doesn't know what the hell to do with his hands.
No, I don't. You know, it's crazy that as a race driver, you talked with your hands too to tell your crew chief and your crew what the car was doing. That's only just words wasn't enough. You had to tell them, okay, when I get to this part of the corner, this is what the car is doing. This is what I needed to do. And as I got into the world of TV, I realized that if you tied my hands behind my back, that you'd get silence. I don't even know how I could speak.
It is fun watching drivers talk to each other because they'll use these hand movements, this, and this, or this, or this.
It's always this, like on the outside.
Oh, yeah, and how you got that in that position and how you got out of it is the main part. But, yeah, it's a universal language within the racing community.
Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, you're here along with Kyle Larson and others with the NASCAR community. You have found through your celebrity or your popularity through NASCAR to utilize it in situations like this, and it's endless and, of course, helpful.
Yes, it is, and I think that's one thing my dad taught me early on, that as I watched him go through his career and then have a successful career in TV later, that he was always giving back to the communities. Didn't matter where we are. NASCAR has done the same thing. We embrace the different cities, communities that we go to. What are the things that we can help with? And here is the Phoenix Children's Hospital.
You just referenced your dad and his driving career into his TV career, and then that's what you've done, driving into TV. Is that something you always wanted to do, is take that next step into TV because of your dad in order to keep your celebrity, maybe not in order to keep your celebrity to help causes like this, but was TV always on the horizon for you or no?
Never entered my mind. I first off didn't even think that I was going to drive a race car to begin with, so it wasn't I was going to follow in my dad's footsteps. I played football, basketball, baseball, and golf in high school. So I had 4 sports. I turned down a golf scholarship to the University of South Carolina, thankfully, because it all worked out in the right way. I was 20 before I ever drove a race car. We have people competing at the highest level in the Cup Series now before they're 20 years old. So, but it worked out for me in that way. And once I got into racing, I honestly never thought, I guess I just thought I was going to race forever, and I tried to. I did it till I was 51, but I did not have a plan whatsoever. And I wish that I would have looked more at what my dad did. You know, there are clips. I mean, my dad calling my win in the '93 Daytona 500 is something that we get all the time, that people still say, hey, that's one of the best moments, especially when you see fathers and sons, that, for my dad to be able to do that, it was a special moment. But as he was doing that, I never thought about what he was doing. I'll be honest, and I'm embarrassed to admit this, but I never visited the TV compound during that time. I was focused on driving the car. I didn't care what was going on out there. They had to do what they had to do. And the only reason I would go back and watch races, it wasn't to listen to my dad. It was to see something I might have needed to know to be a better driver. But once ESPN came to me at that time as I was getting to the end of my career, and they said, look, we don't know when you're going to retire, but we have a job for you. So I started doing a few races and realized that, hey, this is kind of fun. But my dad had some good words and very good advice, which he did all through my years. I didn't listen to a lot of it, but he had some really good advice that, hey, you can make of TV what you want. You could go in the booth and call a race and never do any preparation during the week because you've lived that, you've done it. But it's not the best way to do it because the fans want to hear more than just what the drivers are going through, which you can give that perspective. But to do it right, you get into the garage area and you talk to the drivers and crew chiefs. There's a lot more work to it. I was amazed at how much it took if I wanted to be better at it each and every week. So that's a long answer to your question that, was I thinking about doing this? No, I wasn't, but I'm glad that I got involved because it has kept me there. It's kept me around the sport that's been great to my family for so many years, but it also gives me the opportunity to still connect with the different communities that we go to, and especially things like this.
Now, hold on. Do drivers really come to the TV compound? I still don't think to this day they do that. You guys are going to them. They don't make the effort to go to you.
They don't, but we actually have had some. And once, so in 2008, when I started full-time with ESPN, I went to NASCAR and I said, this is something that as I got involved, I had no idea how many people and the effort that it took to put this on. They're there to showcase the driver's talents and show the world what a great race driver you are, what a great race this is going to be. And we all took them for granted. Yeah, we knew that they paid a lot of money and that helped, our checkbooks, but you should go see the effort that's put forth. I know everybody talks about and hears that what a Super Bowl production is like, the number of people that it takes to make that happen one time a year. This is 36 weekends that this happens, And so I said, you should make the drivers, it should be a requirement. At some point in time, it's only a 15, 20-minute tour, but most stay longer than that. So I have had some to come, and they actually have come to me and said, hey, I appreciate you letting me know about that because it is eye-opening as to everybody that it takes and the effort that it takes to help us out.
Now, social media has changed the game as well. I noticed you're not really on social media because I tried to tag you on something from one of the other accounts I'm working, and I couldn't find you on Instagram. Why is that?
You will find me there now, but you will not see a post. I am there simply to view. It's
to research.
Yes, you see a lot of drivers, their wives or their PR people, and so there's a lot of information to be gathered, more than just I can get from our stats guys. I don't want to know stats. I want to know. My job now requires me knowing more about their personal life, and so I get on for that. I do have a Twitter account that my son actually runs, and if I have something that I want posted there, then I send it to him, and he does it. Keeps me out of trouble because
he's your social media manager.
He is that, and so I could get myself in a lot of trouble. Not just trouble, but I wouldn't have a job because I couldn't hold myself back on some things that I might want to speak out, and so he lets me know that.
Dale, you mentioned wives in there, and Kyle Larson's wife, Caitlin, and Justin Mark's wife put some statements out there after the Daytona race, and they saying, I just don't like this type of racing. What can we do about it? And you forget the outside of the car, families, kids, wives, moms and dads watching their children do that. Your standpoint, what can we do about these things at Daytona, or do we just accept it the way it is?
And I don't mean to put them down, but this is a question that's been talked about for over 60 years. You can go back to the early days and watch some accidents that happened there in 1959 and say, gosh, what can we do about this? Then as the speeds ramped up, gosh, these crashes are just horrific. What are we going to do about it? Then 1987 came along. We were racing at Talladega, and Bobby Allison blows a tire and almost goes into the grandstand. Happened to be my very first race at Talladega, and I was only 10 cars behind where that happened. And then all of a sudden, restrictor plate racing came along. Now we're racing in packs. And we started saying, well, this is great. The speeds have slowed down, but now we have big crashes because everybody's together. What are we going to do about it? Here we are in 2023 asking the same questions. The good side is that for the most part, the drivers walk away. It's at the end of the day, it's not the car's fault. It's not the racing's fault. It's the drivers. You put competitive people in difficult situations, they're not going to think about the consequences. Not a one of those drivers that got in that race on Saturday night said, gosh, what if something happens if I make this move? What could happen is you could win. You don't think about what could happen is I might crash or crash somebody else. And again, fortunately, we saw Ryan Blaney and Ryan Priest take two horrific crashes, and they're both talking about them today, and they may be a little sore at this point in time, but they're going to be ready to climb back in a car. So, I appreciate the concern. I can remember my wife, Kelly, saying for years, when we went to Daytona and Talladega, as a driver, you always get nervous before a race, but they have no control over it. It's harder to watch than it is to participate, and because you don't think about the consequences.
Last one. You've been a part of NASCAR for so many years, and watching the safety with these cars. Were you ever in the middle of it giving advice on how you see the safety of these cars improving?
I was, but I'm going to give kudos to Jeff Burton, one of my colleagues at NBC Sports. Jeff was a driving force through the years, even before we go to that fateful day of 2001 when Dale Earnhardt was lost his life in Daytona in the 500. Jeff was always talking to each of us about what we could do to make the car safer, to give us better chances of surviving crashes. Just things as simple as the seats that we were using. We went from just anything was good enough as long as your seat belts worked, you were going to be fine, and then realizing that no, that wasn't the case, that these seats moved, and just making us aware of that. So it got the rest of us involved in listening and giving ideas, giving feedback. So we were all a part of that. That day in 2001 changed for a lot of us in a lot of ways that made us look at things a lot different, realizing that, okay, now we've done a lot of talking about this. Now it's time to act. It's unfortunate that it took something like that to make us realize that we needed to act sooner than later. But what it did, it got everyone involved. And so, I'm still willing to this day to talk to drivers, to talk to NASCAR when they have a question, to give my opinion. And that's what they need, is to have, not only the drivers that are there right now, but those of us that came along in a time when things weren't nearly as safe, but we might see things a little bit different. So it's always evolving, and we can never stop. You can't let safety take a break. It's something that there'll be something to be learned from the accidents that we saw at Daytona last Saturday night. There'll be something to learn from there, and we have to continue to move forward.